Hey, welcome back to the Anti-Film Film Club. I'm your host, Eric.
Sydney Thurston.
Sydney Thurston. Anti-Film Film Club, where we break down movies, shows, anything that we've been watching, film, and all the aspects that go into that. And it is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So I think I'm going to be dressing up like Star-Lord all week just to annoy you. Which I got my Star-Lord tee on right now, which is what I wore on Friday. So we saw Volume 3 2 days ago. And we had to go see it as soon as we could. It was the IMAX preview, pre-screening, which was a week early. And there was like 12 theaters across the country that actually did that, which was really cool that we got in. And how was it?
It was crazy.
It was crazy. What was crazy about it?
The movie.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, let's do this. Before we get into any spoilery things, let's give like a first reaction. This is completely unscripted, by the way. We're going totally from the hip, totally on memory and emotion. So this is our first impressions of Guardians Volume 3. And we'll do a spoiler alert in the middle when we get to the spoilery stuff. And then we can do some spoilery stuff. But we'll probably do 2 or 3 versions of this because we are also going to see it again this weekend.
Twice.
Where?
At the El Cap.
Yes, El Cap Hollywood fan event, which is going to be pretty awesome. Right? Don't you think that's going to be awesome?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So first impressions. What was your first impression of the film? We did have to stand in line a little bit. I was pleasantly surprised that the line was inside the building because it was 100 degrees outside, which would have been terrible. And we got these really cool posters. That was cool. Limited edition IMAX posters because it was only pre-screening in IMAX. So what were some of your first impressions?
I thought it was very good.
You thought it was very good?
Yeah.
Cool. What does very good mean? Like top 3 MCU movies?
I would say top 5, maybe.
Top 5. Okay.
Maybe 5th place, I don't know.
All
I
right.
need to do some thinking.
Okay. That's fair. Top 5. I can get behind that. What about in the trilogy of the Guardians, where does it land? 1, 2, or 3? Be honest.
Maybe better than the second one.
Okay.
I don't know.
Better than Ego and that whole them fighting his dad and that whole thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that was necessary to set this up, but I would agree. I think this competes with number 1.
I think that's too far.
You think it's too far?
Number 1 will always be
Better.
the best.
Okay. All right. Definitely the best Phase 5 so far. Of course, we've only got 2 films, Phase 5. I think this beats Quantumania.
Very, very, very much.
I think I really enjoyed Quantumania, and we broke that one down in a previous episode. You guys can go check that out. Yes, I was not gonna lie. I was holding back tears a couple of times and then
I could tell.
Totally lost it at one point, but I'm not gonna say that yet. So yes, I think definitely if this is an indicator of how the rest of Phase 5 is gonna go, I'm excited to see what's coming. I think it's good. However, sad at the same time because this is the last of the Guardians of the Galaxy as we know it. It's the last of the trilogy. James Gunn said that he was going to do 3. This was the 3rd one. And he's off to be the head of DC now. So grateful that he was able to go out from the MCU really with a bang. And what else was good? You mentioned something earlier right before I pressed record.
The music.
The music. What about the music?
I thought the music was good, but it didn't have like serious.
But what do you mean? But what?
It was good, but it didn't have serious staple pieces like the first one. Like, you know?
What do you mean staple pieces? I mean, it comes right out of the gate with Radiohead. And
I know. I wish they didn't do the acoustic version.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But it was, and that's not a spoiler because that's in the soundtrack that's been out for a little bit. So Radiohead acoustic version. Okay, yes, I'm with you on that. I would have rather had the regular version, which would have been cool. But still, I mean, it was like 3 good songs like right out of the gate in the first 15 minutes. And you're saying it was mid?
I don't know. I don't think it was mid, but I don't think it gave the Guardians like what they usually
I
give.
mean, the standard when it comes to music is pretty high when talking about this series.
I liked what they did at the end though, and he gave him the iPod thing, and it had the 2000s music.
Yes,
that was cool. Yeah. And then they played
that's kind of spoilery.
Oh,
that's a little bit of spoilery, but we'll let it slide.
Well, not really.
It wasn't an iPod; it was the Zune, I think. Right? Was it the Zune or was it? I don't know. But that was because the Walkman got crushed initially.
Did it?
Yes, in the second one it got crushed, and then I think Sean Gunn's character ended up giving Star-Lord the Zune, which was kind of like a iPod, and I guess they didn't get licensed from Apple to use the iPod word. And quite honestly, the iPod's been deprecated, it discontinued for I don't even know how many years at this point. Though it would have been cool to have it in there because it was older tech that they might have gotten a hold of. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, the 2000s music in there. So
and they played that one song. What is it? The Dark Days Are Over or what?
Oh yeah.
The Dog Days? I don't know.
Dog Days Are Over, yeah.
That was good.
Yep. Another, I think, well, it's on the soundtrack, so it's not really spoilery.
Yep.
And then I didn't realize that We Care a Lot by, oh gosh, who's the band?
Yeah, we listened to that before we were seeing the movie.
And you were like, okay, I had enough. I had enough. I'm like, no, you need to listen to this song. This is a great song. And then it's in the movie. Which was really cool. But what was the song that you were like not happy that it was in there, which I was?
Well, I wasn't not happy. I was just like bummed out that they didn't use a different one because
it was already
used
a movie
Super
recently.
Mario Bros.
Right, which was what?
No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Beastie Boys, No Sleep Till Brooklyn was in Super Mario Brothers, which makes sense because they were from Queens.
Yeah.
Right? The brothers were from Queens. Which is interesting that Chris Pratt was one of the leads in that, and then he's one of the leads in this.
Yeah.
And it's the same song. I wonder if they asked him if he wanted that song again. Faith No More. Faith No More was the band that sang We Care a Lot. Yeah, very popular song back in the 90s. So Beastie Boys. No Sleep Till Brooklyn. And then I don't know. I mean, I'm not upset about it.
I'm not upset. I'm just like, they used that in Super Mario Bros.
Sure. That's fair. Cool. Music. I thought the music was great. And you did too. You just didn't think it was as great as the first one, or maybe even the second one. And I thought it was on par with those. Maybe not as great as the first one because the first one really utilized the music in the story as part of the story, not just adding a little, it wasn't like a side dish. It was part of the main course. And I felt like this was too, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the newer songs. it met my expectations. Let's just say that.
Okay.
I had expectations for there to be great music in there. There was great music in there. I was not disappointed with the lack of music or the use of it in this. And we talked about that in Super Mario episode, where how important it is to have good music, because they had good music in that too. But it is expensive to license music for a feature film, and it's worth the money, I think. What else? All right, music was good.
The storyline was good.
Storyline was good. Yep. All right. Should we give the spoiler warning?
Yeah.
Let's just give the spoiler warning because it's too hard to resist, and we can talk freely. All right. Just so you know, spoilers ahead. Boop, 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 boop. Because Sydney hates the sound effects. But the audience loves it. So here we go. Spoilers ahead. If you have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which you probably haven't since it hasn't released as the time that we're recording this, it's releasing in 5 days. Yeah, 5 days, Thursday. Right? Yeah,
Yep.
Do my math. There are spoilers ahead, so press pause, go away, don't listen to the rest of this until you've had the opportunity to see it, unless, of course, you don't care about spoilers, and in that case, go ahead and continue to listen. Just so you know, you've been forewarned. Spoilers ahead. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, what was the biggest thing that you enjoyed or that you didn't maybe in this film?
Well, I feel like both of them for me go hand in hand because I enjoyed Rocket's showing his upcoming and where he came from and how he got to the point he is now.
Yeah,
and
like
then,
his backstory.
Yeah, and then what I didn't like was the voice.
The voice.
It took me of the baby Rocket. It took me out of the story because it was like it was like no. I would like it to be like an actual child, but no, they made I don't know who did it, but
if it was Bradley Cooper trying to do a baby voice and it was something
I think
this.
he did that. I think when he got a little bit older, it was him. But when he was a fresh baby talking.
Right. Yeah, it just didn't sound, it sounded like an altered older voice.
Yeah, and I did not like it at all.
Like a youthful kid or baby voice. Is that what you mean? And so because of that took you out of the story. Huh. Okay. It did take a little bit of getting used to. That's true. It was because we're used to the gravelly, raspy Rocket voice that Bradley Cooper's done so well for Rocket over the last 2 films. And so I can see that. And so the part that you enjoyed the most was his backstory.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, that was a big major plot line for this film, was who Rocket is, how Rocket became Rocket, and
I like the other antagonists.
The High Evolutionary.
Yeah.
Right.
I like the other one, the one who was the Warlock.
Yes, Adam Warlock. Who was from the Sovereign? He was from the Sovereign people.
He wasn't that smart, and it was funny.
Right. He wasn't that smart. I mean, yeah, he was giving Drax a run for his money and intelligence.
Yeah.
But he was still, I mean, it was interesting because technically he's still a baby. He was just made and they cracked him out of the cocoon too early, apparently. And so he's not fully developed yet. And it was funny when they're interrogating the guy and they're like, okay, make him feel like we mean business. And then he totally kills him. He fries him in the chair.
And then his little pet, that was so sad.
Yeah, but he adopted him, right? He took care of him. And so the little fur baby ended up surviving and making it through.
Yeah.
Okay, my biggest fear walking into this film was knowing that it's the last of this trilogy, knowing that it's James Gunn's last one, and all the rumors floating around that someone's gonna die, and then the trailer where Nebula's carrying Star-Lord.
Got us with that one.
I'm like, Star-Lord's gonna die, and then you know, all the rumors about the logo, and the logo is a certain color for whoever the person's gonna die. Like in Volume 2, the logo was blue and maroon where Yondu dies, and all, you know, all this stuff. And I was like, I can't with another superhero death right now. And then who dies? Star-Lord and Rocket both die in this film, right? They both die.
They both die, technically.
They both die.
And then they go back to life.
Oh, that's right. They do.
Yeah.
Got you.
And when Nebula was carrying him out, it was just because he was drunk.
He was drunk.
Not
he
dead.
He was drunk and despondent because he lost Gamora, and so he's not handling it well. Mm-hmm. And then who shows up? Gamora. And then he just totally loses, like he's all giddy again. Except Gamora
isn't the same Gamora.
Is not the Gamora that he knew. It's like 2012 Gamora before all of their stuff. So, just so you know, yes, Star-Lord died and Rocket died.
And they came back
to life.
Yep.
And that was a freaking roller coaster with the whole emotions. I'm like, And then, I mean, Rocket's like in a hospital bed, like on some kind of medical bed for literally most of the film. Mm-hmm. And it's obviously about saving him and that whole thing, which is cool. What else? What else hit you? So, story was good. Music. We got some people dying, some people raising back to life. I thought the way that Star-Lord came back to life was pretty cool.
Yeah. Character development.
Good character development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so your main characters, we've already had good character. I mean, we already have a relationship with them, right? We already have a relationship with Star-Lord and Nebula and Drax, Groot, Rocket, Gamora, Mantis. OMG.
She got a lot of screen time.
Mantis showed up in a...
Yeah.
Dude, when she got pissed, I was like, oh, man. Like, because she's so, like, meek and passive, right? And just so peaceful. And when she got in Nebula's face and was just letting her have it, I was like... Like, what's going on right now? Such a great roller coaster ride of emotion and feeling and all the things with all the... I was not disappointed on any level. It was a fantastic ride, start to finish. What about the fight scene? You mentioned Friday when we walked out, you mentioned the fight scene. And we were talking about the rating and like, what were your thoughts on that?
I think you mentioned the fight scene.
Well, I was saying
you were saying that you really liked that.
Yeah, well,
it reminded you of The Matrix?
Yes. Yeah, The Matrix, when Neo and Trinity broke into the State Department building to rescue Morpheus, and they go in and then just this the slow-mo, the bullet time, the choreography, it was just fantastic. It was just a very memorable scene, that whole thing. Mm-hmm. And this was very, reminded me of that. Just the degree of intensity, the degree of violence.
Yeah, there was surprisingly a lot of violence.
Yeah, it was pretty gruesome, I think you said.
Yeah.
I mean, minus the the blood because
there was no
robot
really
and
blood. It was just
alien.
yeah.
What do you think people are most excited about for this film?
I don't know.
Do you think that this has gotten more excitement than Quantumania?
Yeah.
Like fan service?
Yes, because it's a Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Yeah. So you think the Guardians series is a bigger franchise than the Ant-Man series?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Ant-Man's got a pretty amazing cast and a pretty famous cast as well. And this cast kind of came up. Maybe the depth of the cast isn't as because you know Michelle Pfeiffer, you've got Michael Douglas, so you've got history, but they've done a really amazing job with this franchise for sure. And James Gunn's spin on it is pretty obvious. I mean, what about Groot?
What about Groot?
I mean, Groot has a pretty big part in this.
I mean, his body gets like blown off in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, so he's just a head with some little root tentacle things.
And then it grows back pretty fast. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but.
Yeah, it did seem like he grew back a lot faster than in the last one. Because in the last one, it opens with him being this, little tiny guy. And then he ends up being like a teenager at the end. So I guess he grows pretty fast. It's almost like Groot was on steroids this time, though, because he was like...
Yeah, he looked jacked.
He was like totally like, wait, what happened? Because the last time he was... Not that he was scrawny, but he was like leaner, like taller and thinner.
And then this one, they made him like have like tree muscles or something.
He was like, he's on roids or something. He's juicing.
I liked when he had all the guns.
Yes.
And then he took them all out.
Yep.
And then he was able to shoot like
when they're
all
in
the people.
When they're in the control room of the high evolutionary, right? And it was obviously a trap, but they went in.
It's a face-off.
Groot went in.
It's not a trap.
Right. Which that was a little foreshadowing to what was happening, right?
Yep.
When they pulled the guy's face off. Oops. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
You guys could probably figure that out.
I didn't even think about that.
Wait, you didn't think about that?
No.
That was so obvious.
I didn't think about it.
There was some foreshadowing when Rocket's backstory, when they did the flashback and he escaped and then he attacked him and he was just tearing up his face, right? And then he wasn't like he was twitching, his foot was twitching, so you knew he wasn't dead, but he was probably close to it. And then they probably engineered whatever they needed to, obviously, to make him better and put his face back on. But yeah, it's a face-off. No pun intended. Actually, pun intended. But yeah, I think, okay, so Groot, it was interesting. I was watching the red carpet premiere the night before, which they had the premiere in LA at the Kodak. And Vin Diesel shows up with this really cool Groot jacket. I don't know if you saw any pictures from that or if you saw any clips from it, but he had this jacket, this suit jacket made with like Groot bark all over it. And it was like tree color. It was really cool. But he was saying some things about having him being the only one that had the full script from James Gunn. And that when he was doing his part, his voiceovers, I'm Groot, in the different parts, that he was supposed to be saying it and he would get the full line of what he's actually saying. Mm-hmm. Which we've seen some of the trailers now at this point, if you've watched any of those, where Gamora turns around and she goes, all right, already, we know who you are. She doesn't understand how he's talking. And then she says, are you guys just making this up? As he's saying stuff and all of that. But Vin Diesel said at the red carpet, he said, I got the script with all the words that he's saying, and I'm translating that into I am Groot. And so he's saying the same thing with those words, but with that emotion. And I thought, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool because you could tell he's saying it a different way each time, even though it's the same words and it's the same voicing. I mean, that's a pretty tricky thing to do. And a lot of good humor in this. What about the humor? Right? When we talked about the emotional ride of it, but does it live up to the expectation of Guardians humor number 1, MCU humor number 2, or vice versa? What do you think?
Yeah, it lives up to it.
Yeah. Yep. What were some of the funny parts that hit you? What about when they go to the counter Earth and he's trying to drive the car?
Oh yeah,
that was funny.
And he doesn't know how to drive it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was 8 years old when I left Earth. Of course, we see that in the trailer. But there's another part that was actually even funnier than that, like where he can't get the car going and he's all over the place.
And when Nebula can't open the door.
When she can't open the door.
When there's a big button.
and she's
pushing the keyhole.
He's like, push the button next to it, and so she's pushing the keyhole. and then he drops.
Then she pushes the button, and then she's like, now what?
Right.
It's like, open the door.
Yeah, but he said it a little differently. And that caused me to go, what was the rating for this? Right? I was surprised because
it was only PG-13.
There was some language in there. Like,
there was only one F-bomb.
Yeah, there was an F-bomb in that point at that part, and there was some other language. But that along with the violence, I thought, wow, this could have very easily been rated R.
If there was blood, I think there would.
If they had blood in that fight scene where they were trying to escape from the I forget what it was. It was some kind of neuro database planet.
Oh, the ones with the people in the suits that looked like Teletubbies.
Yeah, the Teletubby suits.
I don't know what was going on.
And there was some kind of organic matter. Like skin and muscle over the planet or whatever it was, the city.
That was weird.
It was kind of weird. It didn't bother me though.
It didn't bother me, but it was just like interesting.
But then Drax almost dies.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I literally Drax gets shot in the chest with
twice.
He got shot in the chest once,
in the front, and then in the back.
And then he gets shot in the back, right in the same spot.
I thought he was gonna die.
I was like, shoot, here we go.
Yeah.
Drax is dying, right? I'm like, okay, Rocket's already dying on the medical bed. He's gonna end up dead. Drax now is gonna end up dead. Mantis is bawling like he's dead and can't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And I at this point I wasn't sure if Star-Lord was dying or not, but I was just, come on, stop playing with our emotions here. I mean, they did a good job with that. Mm-hmm. Thankfully Drax survives. Not sure how, but he does. What about the end credit scene?
Which one?
Oh, which one? There's two, right? There's one prior to the credits rolling, kind of in the beginning of the credits, and then there's one at the very end.
One with Rocket, or what?
I'm not remembering the first one. I remember the last one, and then I remember the words that were on the screen at the very end.
Was it Rocket with the child? And then the new assembled team, or was that just the end of the movie?
Yeah, that's right. That was the first one. Rocket and Sean Gunn. Sean Gunn finally figures out how to use the arrow effectively when they are getting attacked from the high evolutionaries beings. Mm-hmm. You know,
and he's friends with the dog.
Right. Yeah. Okay. The dog. Dude, how come we haven't even mentioned the dog? The dog is like so Cosmo the dog, which Cosmo is short for cosmonaut. So CCCP, which means the Central Committee for the Communist Party, which really was Soviet Russia back in the 60s and 70s through the 80s, I believe. And there was the whole space race that was happening. And this is real human history. And
did they send a dog to?
They sent a dog in space. And then we sent a monkey in space. So before they sent people, they were trying to see if we think we can let's send an animal and see if it lives through the process, then cool, we know we can send a human. So Cosmo was the Russian dog that we first see in Guardians 1 with the Collector. And he's been collected by the Collector, and him and Howard the Duck happen to be in one of the containers in nowhere, which ends up being the Guardians headquarters. And Cosmo essentially on two separate occasions saved the day. When they were rescuing all of the higher beings, all the kids from the High Evolutionary and all the other animals. If it wasn't for Cosmo, that doesn't happen. Because Cosmo has powers, and Cosmo shows up and is able to keep the High Evolutionary ship, which is in the process of blowing up, and they bridge that with the Nowhere skull,
so they can make it over.
So that they can. And what's funny in that moment? What did it remind you of, or did it remind you of anything? All the kids are already over, and then all of a sudden, all the animals come. What did that remind you of? Anything?
That one movie with Steve Carell.
Okay, yeah. That one movie with Steve Carell where he plays who?
What's his name?
It's a biblical story.
Yeah, I forgot his name. What is it?
Noah.
Okay.
Right? And what did Noah do?
Ark.
Noah's Ark with all the animals. I'm like, oh, this is Noah's Ark because all the animals are... I mean, that just seemed pretty random to me. But at the same time, all those animals are probably going to be saved. And their species are going to be saved because of this.
Because of Rocket.
Yeah.
Because that was him. And Cosmo. And is it a boy?
What?
The dog.
Cosmo? I think so.
Okay.
Or is it? It might be a girl. Actually, it might be a girl because do you remember when
I thought it sounded like a girl.
It might be because Sean Kraglin, when Kraglin's talking to Cosmo and says you're a bad dog, and then the dog has like this breakdown, this emotional breakdown because I'm gonna say based on that first one that Cosmo's gender was changed. I don't know if it was intentionally or unintentionally in one. Marvel canon in the comics, Cosmo is a boy. In this, Cosmo is a girl. That doesn't bother me at all. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are they get real militant when it comes to the MCU making creative changes to these stories. And I think it's fine. I feel
like it doesn't matter that much because it's not like a vital part to the story, and it is like a talking dog. So
I thought it was fine.
Yeah,
I thought it fine, but I'm also not one of those militant canon.
And then she saved the day in the beginning by crushing the warlock guy, and then he left.
Right. So that was the first saving of the day.
Yeah,
was smashing Adam Warlock, which she essentially didn't kill him, but ended his attack basically, and then he kind of left because he was like, "Oh, I just got beat by a dog," which is hilarious. And then Kraglin says, good dog. And she steps up and then really helps save the day and then save the Guardians because they're able to escape, save all the kids because they're able to escape, except for Star-Lord, right? Because Star-Lord ends up, he drops the iPod or the Zune or whatever it is, and he goes back for it. Cosmo is wiped out, passes out, and then he dies.
Needs to get it back. So,
he has to, which was a major scene in the first one. Remember, he went back for the Walkman and then almost didn't make it. Well, he did make it because he had a suit and he came out and whatever. And they're like, that was like he risked his life to get this thing. Yeah, because it was all the music. So anyway.
Yep.
And he did it again. And this time he died.
Yeah.
He was done. And then Adam Warlock came and saved the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was endearing because Adam Warlock, there's no D in there, Warlock, was a bit of a douche because a lot of the sovereign people are kind of portrayed as very douchey in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of in this teen angst of like his mom's telling him what to do and he's kind of like, I'll do whatever I want to do. And, you know, so that whole thing's happening and he's learning about all the things. And I mean, he's a powerful dude for the things that he can do, especially in the comic. Like his like powers are on par with like Captain Marvel. Pretty crazy. But endearing because at first you're like, oh, he's the antagonist. Like he's the bully. He's trying to get Rocket because Rocket stole the batteries in the last one. They just want revenge. They want to kill all the Guardians because the Guardians embarrassed them, blah, 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 right? And then so he shows up periodically as a villain or like a lesser villain, obviously High Evolutionary being the primary. But he's going through this process of growth, of kind of figuring out who he is. And then as he does, he makes some good choices, right? He saves Star-Lord at the end. You can see him becoming more consciously aware of, you know, doing the right thing or whatever, which was kind of endearing because at the end, when they were all hugging Star-Lord, like he kind of awkwardly joined the hug, which I thought was really cool. But Gamora didn't. Even after going through all of that, and even after some of the good things that Gamora stepped into and realized, she
walked off.
She walked away, and I was quite disappointed. I was disappointed in Gamora. I was hoping that, I mean, you can tell that she was thinking about it because of the dialogue at the end, right? Do you remember what she said?
With who?
With her and Star-Lord. Remember, like she walked past him and they're like back to back. You don't remember that? Right before they got on the ship when they were leaving. You don't remember.
What was it?
Well, she said we were pretty good together, or we probably had fun together or something like that. And he said, you have no idea. Do you remember? And, you know, she kind of had a smirk on her face, like just kind of thinking about what that would be like. And then she went back to the Raptures. What else? Anything else that really popped out at you that was really notable?
Groot saying I love you guys.
Okay, here we go. You had to bring that up, didn't you?
I mean, that's a pretty big thing.
That is the biggest thing in this film. I could not contain myself. I was crying like a little baby, and Sydney's sitting in the theater looking over at me, and I didn't look at her. I'm like, I'm not crying. You're crying. Yes.
I was not crying.
You weren't crying. I was crying. Groot says, what did Groot say?
I love you guys.
I love you guys. Groot doesn't talk, and then he says that, and I was done. I was done. That was that was the moment that I could not get past. There's another moment when when Kraglin, Sean Gunn's character, was trying to figure out how to use the arrow, and he was struggling with it, and there's some of that.
He looks at Yondu.
Yeah. Yondu shows up. A vision of Yondu, but it was still Yondu, and I cried when Yondu died. Yes, I've seen it multiple times, and I've cried every time. And it was just again, to your point, right? Character development. The relationships that they have built through these films with the audience is fantastic. They've done a great job developing those relationships over multiple films, and that character development where you really identify and can relate, and they're endearing to you and you like them. And I think this one the Guardians franchise has done that probably better than any of the other franchises. I would completely agree with that. And it's probably the most, Avengers did that really well too. However, I think these characters are more relatable than some of the Avengers. And I think that's why they have a bigger following and it's a bigger audience for this franchise. Yondu shows up. It took everything in me not to cry when Yondu showed up. And then Kraglin figures out how to whistle the arrow and kill all of the invaders that were coming in from the High Evolutionary. Yes, I'm suggesting bring a box of tissues or a little package of tissues, because it is an emotional roller coaster. But there's a lot of funny moments. There's a lot of sad moments. What's the saddest moment in this? What do you think?
When the guy kills his friends, Rocket's friends. That was sad because they're so cute.
Oh, yeah. Lila? Was it Lila?
Yeah.
Lila's the otter, and I forget the other two's names.
Floor
and
Teefs.
Teefs, that's right.
Teeth.
And so Teefs gets shot and Floor gets shot.
Well, first Lila gets shot.
Yeah.
When they were hugging.
Yeah. That was when Rocket lost it and attacked the High Evolutionary and ripped his face off.
Which is deserved.
I was hoping that he would have just ended it. But if he would have just ended it at that point, he might not have escaped. Mm-hmm. And then we wouldn't have had this film. Obviously, the High Evolutionary coming back for Rocket is the primary plot line of this particular. And that was really sad.
I did think that the bunny was annoying, though.
You did? Okay, okay, that's funny that you say that. Okay, so Floor is the bunny, the modified bunny.
It was just a little too much. Just a little too much.
A little too much, because
she was just a little too loud.
She had
for the
spider legs, right?
Yeah.
Like these mechanical spider legs, so her bunny legs weren't actually on the ground, which didn't make any sense. And then she had like this big thing across her face.
Yeah.
It was like a microphone speaker or something.
It kind of looked like Chomper's like teeth, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that.
She annoyed me. That character annoyed me a little bit too. I think
if she was just a little less loud, then it would be fine. But she was just.
Now you said loud. Now do you mean like loud as far as how she talked, or do you mean loud as like it was just over the top with what the modifications were?
I mean how she talked.
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean.
The audio quality of her voice.
Yeah, there was some like sometimes where she didn't really need to be talking.
Mm-hmm.
And then they made her go like screaming like, oh, yay. And I'm like, bro, shut up. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It wasn't really. I wasn't feeling it.
And she was a lesser, like, you know, they're all part of the same batch of modifications, if you will, of the high evolutionary. And maybe her intelligence level wasn't as high. And that's how they were. That part didn't bother me as much as I just felt like the actual mechanical modifications that he made to her didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lila's didn't make as much sense, but they were still functional.
Yeah, like why did they cut off her arms and give her weird stick robot arms?
Okay. I mean, I that was less distracting than Floors.
Yeah.
Floors was a lot more distracting. And so yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because that was like and it's in such a tender moment of them of them building their friendship, you know, as they're on the ground looking up at the ceiling or the pretend sky or whatever and talking about their future. And that would probably be my only criticism.
That her modifications were weird.
It was just, it kind of, I wanted a little bit more, because if you look at the so if Rocket's from the same batch, now maybe they're from previous batches way earlier, okay, perhaps, but when he said get rid of batch 89, they were lumped in to that execution order.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I'm assuming that they were part of batch 89. And if they're the same batch that Rocket was a part of, because Rocket's modifications were a lot more advanced, not just because of how he developed. Obviously, his intelligence was higher, and there was some kind of, you know, he did something to his brain and whatever. I don't know what implants happened in that, but we know the kill switch and the heart and all of that type of stuff. Clearly, there's a lot of higher level technology modifications than these others. And so that part was a little disjointed. I wanted the modifications to be a little bit closer in the tech with what Rockets was, and they're different species, so they're going to respond to it differently. But it almost reminded me of in Toy Story, you know, in Toy Story, and
Sid's toys.
Sid's toys were all totally. That's what it reminded me of. I'm like, oh, that's Sid, the spidery with the doll head. That's Floor. I was like, anyway.
Yeah.
That was really sad. And I thought Rocket was actually going to stay dead when he saw Lila again. And I was like,
mm-hmm.
This is it. Rocket's done. Drax is done. Rocket's done. Star-Lord's done. They're all dying. Forget it. It's over. The other sad part was that the Guardians are not the Guardians anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Star-Lord's like, okay, I'm going back to Earth to see if my granddad's still alive and kind of go back to his roots. And, you know, he's had an identity crisis all through these 3 films, and now he's going back to who he is, or who his mom's side of the family is, and get to know them, which was cool. Nebula is gonna stay and be the mayor of the town, like of nowhere. Mantis is done. Mantis is off to go
do her own thing,
do whatever. Like, I'm gonna figure out what I want to do, which, okay. Being Star-Lord's half sister, why didn't she go with him? Like, hey, he's family now. You figured out that he's family. Go see what the other side of your family looks like. I don't know. even though she's not related to that side. And then Rocket and Kraglin and Groot are still the Guardians, which is cool. And then one of the kids
with a weird
has
eye.
Yeah, she has some kind of powers, and I don't know if that was modified powers from the High Evolutionary or if that was some innate powers. I'm not familiar with her character in the comics, so forgive me if you're one of those. You said top 3 or you said top 5?
Top 5.
So if this is top 5, this would be number 5. What would be your top 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Guardians 1.
Guardians 1 is your top 1. Your top MCU film
in there.
Oh, there's the dog. Rocket has now reverted to the dog. You can't lie and say that you didn't love your dog just a little bit more after that film.
I did.
You did come in and give the dog a little bit more love than before.
Yep.
And what was a big message in this?
No animal testing. Animal
testing, right? That was one of the things that really hit me too, because you recently did a paper on school on this. And like, why are we doing animal testing? It's not necessary. It doesn't really help. And you know a lot more about this because you've done the research. And that was a really powerful message. I don't think it was a primary message in the film, but it was definitely a message of, hey, animal testing, not a good thing. So we can do better as humans. And some people, and that has a people are going to get political about that. Right. They're going to take sides. They're going to go, well, we need to do that because we need to try see if these new medications that we're trying to make. Yeah, but the genetic makeup of a rat or of a rabbit or a monkey or whatever the animal is that you're testing isn't the same as human genetic makeup. So it's not apples to apples when doing those tests. Anyway, I'm sure you can probably go on a bigger tirade than I could about that. Right? So let's not do animal testing. All right. Give me a rating. 1 out of 10.
A 9.
A 9. 9. Okay. Absolutely. I'm going to go a 9.5. It's that good. So anyway, Guardians 1 that's your top number MCU film. What's number 2?
Probably Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, which one? Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming.
I'd say No Way Home because it was crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Because you had all the Spider-Mans in there.
Yeah.
You had the introduction of the multiverse, which I thought the way they introduced it was done very, very cleverly. They brought all these different characters back with the actual actors that played those characters and all the other Spider-Man. So it was just, it was good synergy from all of those. I agree. Okay, so Spider-Man. So Guardians 1, Spider-Man. So
then Captain America,
Captain America, the first one?
Yeah.
So Captain America, the first Avenger. Okay.
And then Endgame is the one that they brought the people back, right?
Yes.
Then Endgame.
Endgame is where Tony Stark snaps and dies. I love you 3000. That was number 4?
Yeah.
And then this is number 5. You're thinking maybe you're not sure.
Maybe it's number 6.
Number 6?
Yeah.
What? Okay. What would be number 5 then?
Iron Man.
Iron Man. The first one.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that kicks it off. Right. Now, are you saying that just because I'm an Iron Man fan?
No, I'm saying that because when I watched it with Amanda in class in, what's her name? Pepper
Potts, yeah.
When they were dancing and she was like, what's your social security number? And I said, before anyone said anything, I said 5. Because that is just my lucky number I like to call out. And then he said 5. So that like freaked me out a little bit.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's number 5.
Yep.
Which would make sense.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. Very cool. I mean, if I'm rating it based on how many times I've cried, and again, we've just seen it once. We're planning on seeing it. I'm planning on seeing it 3 more times by Friday. Friday will be the 4th time I've seen it, because I'm seeing it Wednesday at midnight, which is technically Thursday morning, then Thursday night and Friday night. So boom, boom, boom. That'll be number 4 because we just saw it once. And then I'm seeing it the 5th time on Sunday. So I did see Endgame 23 times in the theater because
that's crazy.
Because it represented 23 days that Tony Stark was lost in space. It represented the 23rd release in the MCU. So it just made sense. I saw Infinity War 10 times in the theater, and I'm going to see this 9 times in the theater to honor the 9-year run from Guardians 1 to this one. I know I'm a little strange and nerdy in that way. But if I'm going to use the cry scale, Endgame was number 1 for me. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, being my favorite character, sacrifices himself to save everybody else. And then I cried like a baby in that when Morgan said she wanted cheeseburgers, because that was a callback to the first one.
And then your second one.
The second movie that I cried the most in would have been Infinity War, because when Spider-Man died in Infinity War, I lost it. When Black Panther, there were so many people that died in Infinity War. I was like, again, crying like a little baby.
I forgot about Black Panther.
Yeah.
I would put that at 2.
Black Panther is number 2. Okay. Yep. Black Panther dying. That I cried quite a bit over that one. I actually cried more because Chadwick Boseman died. And then that put a whole nother spin on Black Panther for me. Spider-Man, No Way Home, and then this one. So I would say Endgame, Infinity War, Black Panther, and it's tough because I love Iron Man. Iron Man was the one that kicked it all off, and but that was the beginning of the character development. That was kind of the beginning of the MCU, really, as far as cinematic universe. There's a lot, but I would put this top 5. I think this one comes in 4 or 5 for me. So you give it a 9. I give it a 9.5. It gets 4 3/4 stars. How many stars did you give it on Letterboxd?
4.5.
4.5. Okay. Because you were a little disappointed in the music.
And some of the annoying voices.
Yeah, and the voices really hit. See, that's interesting to me, and it tells the story of why audio and the audible sounds that we hear are so important, because some of the sounds in this took you out of the story. All right, well, I think that wraps it up for this spoilery episode of Anti-Film Film Club, where we talk about GOTG Volume 3. But we're going to come back again. We're going to talk about our trip to El Cap. We're going to talk about seeing it again another couple of times, because a lot of times there's stuff that you miss, right? When you go back and see it again, you're like, oh, right? Like you're going to think about Face Off the next time.
Yeah.
When we go see it on Thursday. All right. Well, until later this week, and we come back with another episode. You want to give us a countdown?
3, 2, 1.
See ya.